This isn't rambling, and in this video I'm going to be doing embroidery while rambling. This is not an instructional video on embroidery in any way. Today I'm continuing the love potion that I started on last time. So I had mentioned that I was interested in pelvic floor physical therapy after kind of hearing some background information on it on one of the podcasts I follow. And so I actually made an appointment with the PT. They're abbreviated as PT, right? I made an appointment with a PT that was kind of close to my area, and I went, and I just want to share everything I experienced and learned just in case you're curious about pelvic floor physical therapy. And honestly, I didn't know much about the pelvic floor pretty much at all, except for the famous Kegel sting, until I kind of heard the podcast and then went to see a PT. So I'll just get into it now. So first, I actually did a phone consultation with a PT after reaching out to them. And unfortunately, they were not in my area, but she was very, very helpful. She gave me a lot of information, and I honestly wish I could have gone to her. But since she was too far away, I ended up just going with somebody who was closer to me. And first, I contacted them by sending them an email of the symptoms I was experiencing, and then I once again explained what my symptoms were once I was there in person. And the PT that saw me, she told me that the number one reason for people coming to see her was for urinary incontinence, or basically pee problems, and then the second most common reason was for pain during sex. And one of the examples of pain during sex is like whether it's a toy or your partner, if it feels like they are hitting a wall and you're feeling kind of impact pain, it could be that they're either hitting your cervix, or it could be you have some sort of pelvic tension. And just so you know, everything I say is kind of based on memory from my discussion. So if you're a pelvic floor PT and I'm saying something incorrectly or I'm misremembering, please correct me, because I can only do like based off my one visit memory. But anyways, continuing. In that scenario where you feel pain when your partner or a toy goes in too deep and that is hitting your cervix, the doctor said that this is something that could be improved, and she was saying that the cervix can actually move, which I didn't know. She said the cervix can move back and also drop down and be like lower. So for example, like if you're a pregnant woman and then you're going to be giving birth soon, the cervix would be going lower in your vaginal canal because it's going to, like, you're going to have to give birth, you know? And so she was saying that the cervix can actually move, and she was saying that you want the cervix to be kind of lifted up and out of the way in order for your partner or a toy to not be hitting it. And so one of the ways she said helps move the cervix move backwards is when you're aroused. So if you're more aroused, it's more likely for your cervix to be going towards the back rather than dropping down. And if you're having sex with a partner, she said that it could help to switch the order of things. So maybe you will have a orgasm first, and then your partner can do it next, and that way your cervix will already be kind of lifted up and away. But she also said that arousal is not the only factor. There's also your anatomy to consider. So the anatomy on the inside, some people, certain positions will work better because of the way your actual cervix is positioned and like the anatomy of your canal. I don't really remember everything, but she said so arousal, anatomy, and then the last part is gravity. So gravity is also a factor. So depending on what position you are in, your cervix naturally by gravity will lower in certain positions. And so if you're, for example, laying on your back in like a missionary style, she suggested like putting a cushion underneath your butt, like a wedge or something, and it will help like the cervix like go to the back or something. I don't remember exactly, but something like that. So it has to do with arousal, anatomy, and gravity, from what I can remember. Another thing she mentioned is it could also just be related to depth, I guess. So is your partner or a toy too big for you? Then there's something that could limit the depth of the penetration, and it's something called a O-nut. And I think it's made of silicone or something. She didn't actually show it to me in person, but I did see like pictures of it online. And she did give me like a coupon thing because that thing is so expensive for like a little tiny silicone thingy. It's like, I think it was like $70 or $75. But then I feel like the manufacturer, it probably cost them way less money to actually make something that small. But anyways, it basically looks like kind of like a donut or something that you put at the base of your partner's penis or at the base of a toy. So imagine getting like a little donut ring and then sliding it on from the top and sliding it down to the bottom, to the base. Does that make sense? You can probably find pictures online. I'll also give a link in the description, so if that's something you need or are interested in, you can check it out. But basically, by having those little donuts, it's gonna kind of shorten the length of how much is actually gonna go inside of you. And I did try to find an alternative because that thing is so expensive, like a alternative, like a bumper or whatever it's called. And I did find one, but I don't know if it's actually good or not. So you would probably have to test it out to see if it actually works well and properly, or if it's better to just go with the original. And I think the original one, it's like you can adjust how much depth you would want or not want. You can just look at the pictures and it'll make sense. And another kind of pain during sex that you could experience is actually having pain during the entry. But we didn't go into detail about that. But if you're somebody that experiences pain during entry, then at least you know that's something that you could discuss and probably work on with a pelvic floor PT. Okay, so like my big problem that I had to go to a pelvic floor PT for was my pee problems. I think I'm an anxious peer because I'm one of those people who has to pee all the time. And I have this problem where it's like, before I go somewhere or do anything, I have to be like, oh my god, I have to go pee. And then I get to the place and then I have to like scope out where every restroom is because I'm like, oh, but what if I have to pee? I don't have to pee right now, but what if I have to pee? And then before I have to sleep, I would be like, I'm gonna go pee. And then I like web surf on my phone and I'm like, oh, but because I didn't go to sleep right away, I should pee again in case. And then like the second time I would go to the restroom, it would be like barely anything and it would be like a few drops, and it's like it was so pointless that I didn't have to go the second time, but then because of my brain I was like, oh my god, I have to go just in case. And so that I wanted to see if I could kind of improve, like if it was like I'm having a bladder problem. Is it a bladder problem? And is it something I could fix or blah blah blah. And she told me that based on what I told her, that was something that she experienced too, actually, before she kind of fixed it. But she was saying that my problem is actually kind of tied to my mind, I guess, or my brain. And she was basically saying there's something called a Bradley loop, which I think it was called a Bradley loop, but I kind of don't remember. But she was saying that pretend that you go to the restroom when your bladder is 50% full, rather than going to the restroom when you're at 100% full. Then you're kind of starting to train your brain into thinking that 50% is 100%. So when your bladder, because you keep going when your bladder is at 50% full, your bladder will start sending signals to your brain going, hey, your bladder is 100% full, you have to go pee now, even though it's only at 50%. But then by always like peeing when your bladder is not completely full, you're kind of training your bladder into thinking it needs to go sooner than it actually does. You're basically creating like a new normal for it. And to kind of work on this problem, she told me that I should start keeping a bladder diary. So I would write down when I pee and like what time I pee, and then how much liquids I drink, and then how much I peed. Like, did you have like a sufficient amount of pee, or was it just like a few drops? And so you would keep track of that every day. And she said that a person should be able to hold their urine for 2 to 4 hours. Unless you like chugged a bunch of water all at once, then she said it's okay if you use the restroom if you like drank a bunch of liquid. But she said you should be trying to hold your pee for 2 to 4 hours before you go use the restroom. And she told me that there are some bladder irritants that could, I guess, make your body want to... I don't know if the bladder irritants make you want to pee more because it wants to like get rid of the irritants or something. So correct me if I'm giving misinformation, but she was saying some bladder irritants are things containing caffeine. So like coffee, tea, chocolate. She also said things with citric acid, so a lot of fruits. Those are also bladder irritants. So she said if you consume the bladder irritant, then you might have to go pee sooner. So try to avoid those if you can. And so whenever I consume something that I think is a bladder irritant, I would put a note on it in my bladder diary. And she also told me to try to drink 2 liters a day of water and to take it in sips rather than chugging. But it's so hard because I feel like whenever I drink water, I drink like lots of water at once rather than doing like small sips throughout the day, because especially when it gets towards the end of the day and then I feel like I'm not reaching my water quota, then I'm like, oh my god, I have to drink the water. And then unfortunately it makes me like have to pee like when I have to go to sleep, because I have to try to drink all the water like in advance before sleeping, I think, because then I wake up in the middle of the night and have to go pee. So, but she said like to try to drink 2 liters and do it in sips, not chugging. And another thing I asked her about is like, you know how you hear the stories about when you like sneeze or cough, or when you're like doing an exercise where you like lift a weight or something and then you kind of like pee your pants a little, like a little dribble. Like I asked her like what is that, and then she told me that it has to do with stress. So when I say stress, I don't mean emotional stress. I mean like stress on the muscle, I guess. But basically she said to imagine that you're holding a dumbbell, then your arm is like flexing its muscle the entire time. So imagine that you're holding the dumbbell the entire day, then it's putting stress on that muscle the entire day. And then like if you're flexing the dumbbell the entire day, then imagine like you do a cough or something, then it creates like a pressure. So imagine you're holding up the dumbbell and then something smacks your arm while you're still trying to hold up the dumbbell. Then that's when a leak occurs, and that's when you kind of like pee your pants a little. But she didn't go into detail on how you could prevent that from happening because the session was only an hour long. So, and I feel like this hour went by so fast. Like, it went by so fast. Oh, and I forgot to mention. So basically for my bladder diary, it's supposed to help me be more aware of my peeing habits, and you want to eliminate times that you are peeing unnecessarily. So for example, my weird thing where I felt like I had to pee 2 times in a row before sleeping, I would not do the second pee at all. So now when I use the restroom, I never have like the thing where it's like just a few drops because I actually didn't have to go to the restroom. It's actually like full peeing, you know? So you have to eliminate any unnecessary peeing time, I guess. Yeah, just make sure to just try your best to hold 2 to 4 hours. But you know, it's so hard because even though I'm sipping, I'm taking like too many sips of water, and then it makes me want to pee like very, very badly, but then I'm holding it, and then I'm like, oh my god, I have to pee right now! But then I have to like hold it, and so I'm suffering, and then now I'm like doing the pee dance, and then like kneeling because I'm like, I don't want to pee myself, and then I have to run to the restroom, and then, yeah, so I need to figure that out. I need to be not doing the opposite extreme of the problem where instead of peeing too much, it will be like holding your pee to the point where you're having problems. I still feel like I'm forgetting something, but if I remember, I'll like do another video talking about the extra details, I guess. Oh yes, so I actually didn't go over how the whole process was. Okay, so after you went into the room with like the little bed or whatever, and then like I discussed, so everything I'm telling you, we were like discussing it while kind of doing something. So she had me lay on my back, flat on the bed, and then she started to do like, oh, okay, so she had me lift my shirt halfway, I just remembered, and she said, oh, I can tell you're a chest breather because your ribs are flared. So what she was explaining to me was that the rib cage kind of works like hinges. So I don't know how to explain it because she demonstrated it with her hands. Imagine like a pair of scissors when you're like opening and closing the scissors. When you're breathing, your ribs kind of extend out and in, out and in if you're breathing through your diaphragm. But she was saying I'm breathing through my chest, so my ribs are kind of permanently flared out. And so she said she wants me to adjust my breathing so that my ribs are in like the proper resting position, I guess. But she was saying that when you're constantly chest breathing, you're in a, you know, the fight or flight mode? She said that you'll be in the fight or flight mode instead of the rest and digest mode. I think that's what she said. So if you're in the fight or flight mode, your oxygen isn't going to be circulating as efficiently because it's just like, oh, you're in danger, so we need to put oxygen to like the most important places. But then it kind of like neglects the other areas, I think. But if you're in the rest and digest state, then your oxygen is like circulating like the most efficiently or something like that. So she was saying that what can help was to do 360 diaphragmatic 360 diaphragm breathing. And she said that the diaphragm breathing will help you to be in the rest and digest state, and also to help relax your pelvic floor or pelvic floor tension or something like that. But since I can't really explain the breathing technique, I will just find a YouTube video that was kind of like how she was explaining it so you can see for yourself. And also she mentioned something called flower breathing, but I didn't really understand what she was saying. Like she kept saying like it has to be like a flower is blooming, and then she was like showing me with her hand, but I don't know, I didn't really understand it. So, and when I tried to look for a YouTube video, I just saw like a children's video, but I wasn't sure if that was correct, so I didn't watch it. But for now, I'm trying to practice the diaphragm breathing. But anyways, I was laying straight on my back, and then I had my shirt like lifted up to like my rib cage, and that's when she told me that my ribs were like poking outwards. And then she started to like massage my stomach, and then she was saying like she wants to like, I guess, feel or listen to the organs that sit on top of the pelvic floor. And then she made me do like a butterfly with my left leg, and then she like massaged my inner thigh, and then she made me do a butterfly with my right leg and massage the inner thigh. And I asked her what that was for, and then she said that there's some sort of nerve that runs from like your she said there's some sort of nerve that runs through there, and then that it's supposed to like help relax your pelvic floor or something like that. And then afterwards she got like lube on her finger, and then like she inserted her finger, and then she started to feel like the walls on the inside. And then I asked her like, how do you know if the pelvic floor muscles are tight? Because she said mine were kind of on the tighter side, but she said she can tell by like kind of feeling for the tone of the muscle. And also she said that when somebody's pelvic floor muscles are tighter, it feels kind of like puffy inside, and there's like less room for her fingers or something like that. And then so she said my pelvic floor is kind of tight. And then after that I put on all my clothes, and then she showed me a model. There was like a little skeleton model of like the pelvis, and then she showed me the pelvic bowl. So basically imagine just a bowl, and the entire inner walls of the bowl is covered in muscle. And she didn't go into detail about like the muscle names or anything. She just kind of showed me the model. But I was surprised because I thought it was just like some parts of the inside was having muscle and some parts were not. But it was like literally the entire thing was covered in muscle. So, but that was basically the stuff she was like touching when she like put her finger inside. She was like touching like all around the sides and the back and everywhere. And then at some point at the end of the session was mostly, I think, just learning and education, because I wasn't really doing any actionable things. I was mostly just learning a lot of stuff, learning general knowledge, I guess. But at the end of the session, she told me 3 stretches I could do. She told me I should do the happy baby, child's pose, and frog pose. And those were supposed to be, I think it's supposed to help relax my pelvic floor muscles, but I'm not really sure. But those are the only stretches she told me. That was kind of my homework to do. So she told me to practice doing 360 diaphragm breathing, flower breathing, happy baby, child's pose, and frog pose, and to keep the bladder diary. And then she said that normally, I asked her how many sessions you're supposed to do, because the appointment was quite expensive. It costed me $250, I think. But she said that she normally likes to do like 12 sessions with someone, or if she cannot do 12, she wants to do 6. But I don't think I can pay that much money for that. And then I know it's like if you like injure your arm or something, it takes a long time to kind of heal the arm and do like physical therapy for the arm. So it makes sense because the pelvic floor is muscles as well, kind of like the arm. So of course, if you're training it to do something, it's going to take a lot of time. So, and normally she would want to see the patient once a week. I think that's what she said. But it's also like my work, I can't take a day off work every single week for 12 weeks. So in combination with my work and how much it costs, I feel like I want to try to learn as much as I can and maybe just 2 or 3 sessions. And then like I mean, like, if she teaches me all the stretches and exercises, maybe I can just continue to do it on my own. It's just that it's a lot of money. And it kind of makes me wonder if you're someone who can't afford to get put like 250 or like $200 a week. I'm not even gonna be going every week. I have to like stagger it because I don't want to spend 250 a week. But if you're someone who doesn't have like the income to be able to pay for that, then are you just like doomed to have problems? Like you just don't have access to these things? And I feel like the insurance companies don't even care about pelvic floor physical therapy because I don't think my insurance covers it. Because I remember I tried looking it up one time and then it was like, it was only if it was like urgently needed that I'm allowed to get it. And it was like, if you're someone who just had a baby or something like that. But it's so stupid because why am I paying so much money for insurance when they're not even gonna cover anything and I have to pay for everything myself? But anyways, overall, I think the experience was very interesting. I only did one session so far, but I'm gonna try to do 2 or 3 sessions, and I think my next session is supposed to be more actionable things, so where I'll be doing exercises. I think the first session was mostly about learning, so once I do the next session, I'll try to share everything that I learned. Although my problems are related to having a tighter pelvic floor. So if you're someone who has a tighter pelvic floor, I guess the things I share might be relevant to you, but of course, you should probably check a PT yourself to determine like what are your needs and whatnot, just so I don't misguide you with my specific problems that I have. And just as a little note, which I didn't really think about, is that pelvic floor PT is not something that's just exclusive to women. If you are a human with a pelvis and you're having problems with your bladder or constipation, etc., then it could be beneficial to see a pelvic floor PT. Okay, this became very long, so I hope that you found this kind of informative and interesting. But thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!